sun is rising high up over Terrytown. Friends taking off and friends touching down. And that's where you'll find that one of a kind JJ. JJ the jet plane. That's me. Never been another little guy like this. So much in love with the sky like this. So buckle up tight. It's a magical flight with JJ. JJ. JJ the jet plane.
That's me. That's me. That's me. That's me.
I'm sorry, sir. I don't really know. You can't really just start a sentence, without just saying "that's me." That's like an incomplete sentence. I don't know who you are,
Lucas. What are you talking about? I'm trying to. I just finished watching JJ the Jet Plane. And I'm just trying to. I'm working on that new impression, and that's the first. You said it can't be a sentence. That's the first phrase that we hear JJ the Jet Plane say in this entire show. That's me.
You see, the problem here, Will, is that your impression was so good, and the listeners might not know this, but we don't do this over video. I just hear the voice. I didn't realize you were. I was mistaking you for the titular JJ the Jet Plane. But I didn't want to be rude in case it wasn't.
You thought I just left the episode playing and we were just going to have it on in the background, didn't you?
I don't know what I thought, but I'm happy to hear it's not JJ the Jet Plane. It's, in fact, my friend Will, co-host of For the Kids, a Patreon-exclusive Elwood City Limits podcast. Will, how's your week been? Were you excited to escape the throngs of quarantine on a jet plane?
Well, Lucas Mancini, I mean, I'm always pleased when you kind of take the reins there a little bit. It caught me off guard, but I liked it. I liked it a lot.
I've had an afternoon coffee, so there's pep in my step.
I'll say, my goodness.
And also, I've spent my afternoon traveling the skies, if you will.
Well, I started this bright and early in the morning, so either way, I was bound to be feeling some sort of way about the show we're talking about today. Now, this rotation we are on is Lucas's choice, and he decided once again he chose violence. He decided to hurt me by choosing something that we mentioned, I think, in passing and often derisively, the show that aired on PBS Kids called JJ the Jet Plane, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, I must admit, I'm coming into this with a little bit of, as you can tell from the last ECL episode where we brought it up, the last episode For the Kids, I have not been looking forward to this show, so I'm coming into this with a little bit of, airplane terminology, everybody, a little bit of baggage, as we get set to talk about this kids show, but maybe it's not fair for me to say that this was entirely a pick made out of spite. Lucas, did you have some kind of connection to JJ the Jet Plane?
Yeah, let's see if this answer makes it through checking and claims here. I had some experience with JJ the Jet Plane. I'd most certainly seen it before. It was definitely on when I still would have been watching PBS. So I remember seeing the ads. I remember it being either on after or before one of the shows I actually did kind of like and followed. I think it was also on the Canadian channel Treehouse TV, which was
you're close.
Oh,
you're close.
Okay, we'll get to that later, but as we've gone over many times on For the Kids, I had a little sister who was 4 years younger than me.
I have a baby sister.
Exactly. And so a lot of times there's shows we talk about on For the Kids that I have a familiarity with, even though they came 4 years after my time, because my little sister would have been watching them at the time. And so this is probably a show that she would be more familiar with than me, and I remember seeing over her shoulder. So long story short, I have a familiarity with JJ the Jet Plane, but you might have guessed, Will, it wasn't out of kind of a reverence for the material that I selected it. It was because I wanted to see what you thought of the Creepy Face show. Face plane show. Planes with faces. The planes have human faces, Will.
On Twitter at GoodFacesBot could probably have a whole other account with this television show. I definitely had seen it when I was younger, and we will get into kind of where I would have seen it. But yeah, for some reason, and I couldn't be able to express why, there were like something about it that really set me off on the wrong foot when I think about it now. And I think I've actually been able to determine there's two things, and we'll talk about it throughout the episode. The first thing that I really don't like is, well, you know what? We'll get to it. We are going to get to it later. You probably already guessed.
I'm so excited.
Okay, so there are two things about the show that I continue to not like, and informed my view as I went into this whole process of researching the show and finally watching it. So as we always like to do, or I always do a little bit of research to find out where exactly JJ the Jet Plane, or whatever PBS Kids show we're talking about, came from. So the original concept for the show was actually meant to be a live action show similar to previous episodes, Thomas the Tank Engine and Theodore Tugboat. So this was, in a way, supposed to be, we had trains, we had boats, and then we were going to have planes. Seems
Makes
like
sense.
a pretty, sensible evolution.
Every kind of type of transportation John Candy used to get home for Thanksgiving. We're going to check them all off the list.
I don't know if we necessarily have one for cars.
For automobiles?
We might have
a film series.
Well, yeah, that's true. But not on this kind of like lower budget practical scale, at least none that I can think of off the top of my head, although we might have one a bit later. So it was originally, the idea was to make this type of a series, and in fact, they did. So I was completely unaware of. This was all new to me. So the original pilot series, Har Har, of JJ the Jet Plane was developed at a studio called AMS Pictures in Dallas, Texas. So they made what ended up being 3 VHS tapes worth of stories. So like 12 different little episodes between 1994 and 1996. These are real, and you can find them on YouTube. And they are, just as I said, it's basically Thomas the Tank Engine or Theodore Tugboat, but with planes. They just made models, gave them faces, and kind of used different techniques to make them move. So this actually happened. Like, I couldn't believe this. All I'd heard of is the CGI version that I think everybody else is familiar with.
Ditto.
I really encourage you, Lucas, and everybody to just go and check it out. Like, just go search JJ the Jet Plane pilot on YouTube, and you'll be able to see kind of what it looks like. It's very different, and it, I mean, obviously in terms of visuals, but even just in terms of how the stories are presented, it's very much, like those two other shows that I mentioned, of like trying to basically almost ape what they were doing. As much as Theodore Tugboat was copying off of Thomas the Tank Engine, then JJ the Jet Plane was copying off of Theodore Tugboat in a sense. So the original creators are credited as being David and Deborah Mitchell. Michael, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Michel. So David was a former Methodist preacher and head of a marketing firm, and he wanted to make a show on TV for preschoolers to counteract more violent shows like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which I feel was probably the motivation of a lot of kids programming in the 90s, when you kind of had peak violent children's television with Power Rangers and all of its kind of related knockoffs, Ren and Stimpy and all that kind of stuff.
Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. So he actually got involved hands-on in the original pilot series of JJ. Like, he painted the models. He was like, David Mitchell as a creator was very much involved with JJ in the process. So unfortunately, the pilot series kind of initially didn't start so great out of the gate, but it managed to recover modestly enough after different stores kind of picked up the VHS tapes, and after that they were able to make, kind of modest amounts of merchandise, and eventually they were able to reach an agreement with the LA animation studio Porchlight Entertainment, which is where they developed the signature CGI approach for the series that would come afterwards. I looked at Porchlight Entertainment. I don't recognize any of their other shows except for Adventures from the Book of Virtues, which was a show that I know was on at the same time as a lot of my other favorite shows. I never watched it though, so I just know the name.
Is Adventures from the Book of Virtues Christian, Will? It sounds like it.
I think it might be, yeah. And we'll get into it in a little bit, but there is kind of a Christian association to JJ. I wouldn't say it's not a Christian cartoon. It's not like a Veggie Tales or something, but there is kind of a Christian faith adjacency to its production. And we'll get into exactly why. And of course, we just mentioned the creator, former preacher himself, who was kind of motivated by all the violent children's shows. So the JJ that we all know, the new CGI series, originally debuted on the Learning Channel, aka TLC, in November 1998. So that may be where you originally saw it, Lucas, if not on PBS Kids. That's where I would have seen it, because they had a block of shows called Ready, Set, Learn, which was... It's funny, this kind of came back to me doing this research. So the Ready, Set, Learn block on TLC was it wasn't Fox Kids, it wasn't YTV, it wasn't PBS Kids. It was kind of like an also ran that had I'll tell you, they aired the Berenstain Bears cartoon. They aired a show called The Big Garage, which came back straight into my mind. I would love to talk about some of these TLC shows later. The Big Garage was kind of... It is kind of like one of these Thomas the Tank Engine type shows where it's like they are cars and they work at a big garage, and there's villains in it and stuff. It's almost hard to describe, but it is that sort of model, animated models and puppets type of deal, like a Shining Time station. They also had Salty's Lighthouse, which we talked about in the Theodore Tugboat episode, because that was the American vehicle for the show Tugs. Do you remember us talking about Tugs, which was the
precursor to Theodore the Tugboat? Yeah,
and kind of the Thomas the Tank Engine production, doing their own version of it. So Salty's Lighthouse was the show that was on. They also had Skinamarink TV, which Canadian listeners will know was one of the vehicles for Sharon, Lois, and Bram, the famous Canadian children's performers. Lucas, do you know? Lucas, you hardly touched your Sharon, Lois, and Bram. Do you not know?
Do they now, from the name of the television show, I remember in the recesses of my mind, Skinnamarink Dinky Dink Skimmarinky Doo, I Love You or something. The song has stuck with me, but I don't think I had, these aren't for instance, like a Raffi, that sort of household name.
Well, they're very, very similar, in terms of... Yes. Yeah, I'd say that they're all kind of in the same circles at around the same time. But yeah, Sharon, Lois, and Bram, I guess depending on how old you are and depending what your upbringing is, are very much Canadian children's television royalty. Actually, they might not be Canadian necessarily. I might have to be careful about that. Anyway, so the new JJ series was picked up by the Learning Channel, and it aired there starting in 1998. They aired 26 episodes. The show was pulled off of TLC in 2000, but then it began airing on PBS Kids in 2001, with additional episodes created from 2001 to 2005. And then in 2005, they ordered additional episodes that were under the title JJ's Mysteries. So I wasn't able to find out too much about that, but I'm guessing he had his own kind of mystery spinoff.
Yeah, where are all these planes disappearing in the Bermuda Triangle? What happened to that Malaysian flight? We really need JJ on the case.
I saw, it's additional episodes created from 2001 to 2005, and I was like, I would have thought plane-based entertainment took a... kind of a nosedive around the time.
There's a JJ mystery. Can jet fuel melt steel beams or what?
Oh, God. Welcome to the Patreon, folks. So altogether, 26 episodes aired on TLC, 24 episodes aired on PBS Kids, and then 12 VHS stories. So there's about 62 episodes of JJ across all of these different platforms. And I think it still airs on PBS Kids, probably on its streaming service, at least to some degree. The entire series is also available on Yippee, which, Lucas, there are official uploads of the show on YouTube, free and legal, by the service who owns them. So Yippee I'd not heard of before. It's a streaming service that specializes in, and I quote, faith-filled kids shows, and exists as a, quote, wholesome alternative to YouTube. So
Interesting.
There does seem to be some Christian faith-based intention behind where JJ the jet plane is at all times, even though, as we will get into with this episode, not exactly, there's no mention of the Lord or anything
it's
like
no
that.
Veggie Tales or anything.
No.
It's not like these planes are flying with the power of Christ behind them. But interesting to know. I was not like you. I was not familiar with this Yippee that was playing at the start of these episodes we were watching on YouTube. So interesting to know. It's this sort of faith-based streaming service.
It seems to be the place to stream Veggie Tales online. Like that's one of their big selling points is like, here's where your kids can watch Veggie Tales. So
would you be surprised to learn, Will? Maybe this is a topic for another episode, another day. I was actually, despite growing up in a pretty secular household, a huge Veggie Tales head back in the day. I don't think my parents even realized they were religious. They just bought us the DVDs because we liked those vegetable characters.
Well, and after a while, they kind of, I don't know if they got away from it, but eventually, like, they had that theatrical film, The Pirates Who Don't Do Anything. Like, was that religious?
Well, so I believe that theatrical film is a adaptation of Jonah and the Whale.
Excuse me.
I think the way Veggie Tales used to work. This is funny that I'm describing Veggie Tales to you.
Well,
but the way it worked was that every episode, basically, there was like an episode that was a story from the Old Testament. That would be like the first, like it'd be 20-minute episodes, kind of like every kid's show. So the first 10-minute episode would be a story from the Old Testament, and then the second episode would be kind of like a pop culture kind of parody that's still kind of trying to teach you like a Bible story, but it would be less of a direct from the Bible kind of situation.
Well, see, like I definitely watched Veggie Tales when I was younger. It was actually something like by the time I was in a religion class that showed us Veggie Tales. By the way, religion class is a relic of, like, literally in my elementary school, we would have a block where we would either go to Catholic religion class or Protestant religion class, and then I don't know what happened to the other kids. I think you could just go to like the library or something. But yeah, I went to Catholic religion class, and eventually we got to see Veggie Tales. And by the time we did, it was like, oh, cool! Like we've heard about Veggie Tales and how it's so funny. The ones I remember, we had 2 videotapes. We had their version of David and Goliath, and I remember they had one of Joshua that was called Josh and the Big Wall, which I thought was the funniest thing in the world.
Yes, I thought that was very funny too. There was French peas, and he makes the wall go down. It's good stuff. Listen, Veggie Tales taught me, as someone who, again, grew up in a non-religious household, Veggie Tales taught me quite a bit about the Bible. So I guess it served its purpose in terms of being educational content and remaining entertaining for someone like me who had no kind of connection to the source material. But that's a topic for another day, I suppose. Moving on to JJ the jet plane.
I feel like as we continue to do for the kids at PBS Kids podcast, we keep finding splinters off into like different roads. Just like even in this episode, it's just like, I would love to talk about these shows that were on the Learning Channel. I would love to talk about Veggie Tales at some point. We've mentioned before Yvonne of the Yukon and all this kind of stuff. So it's like, we'll have to see. We'll see how this show naturally evolves as we continue doing it. Anyway, what I do want to talk about is, of course, the look of the show. That is what I believe would stick in the mind most to people who watched it as kids. So the CGI version of the show, it is most notable because it was achieved by combining, they did miniature sets for the backgrounds like you would for, Thomas or Theodore or whatever. They would have, of course, live action actors shot in front of a green screen, and then they would combine that footage with the CGI models, which are the planes, and they would be, of course, kind of very cartoony and colorful, and they all have a human face, much like Thomas or Theodore or anything of that ilk, but the faces being CGI, they used face tracking technology to get the lip movements, which at the time was not as, I think as
Naughty Dog Entertainment. This is not.
No, but at the time it was not as ubiquitous as it is in a lot of like Hollywood productions or even in kids shows today. So this, it was made in the late 90s, and so this is where I have to say, by God, they tried. So I came into this being like, I'm ready to hate the way it looks, and it's like I'm ready to just absolutely crap on this show. But I really have to admit, it wasn't all that bad. I'm not saying it looks good. I'm just saying they were under some harsh restrictions due to the time and probably the budget they were working with. I think it looks fine. Like
I
it looks,
think-
it looks weird. It looks weird. Don't get me wrong. It looks weird.
Yeah.
But I can't sit here and be like, well, this looks stupid, while I'm also being like, I love the old Thomas the Tank Engine, and that doesn't look weird at all. It's just like, you know.
I think
okay.
Thomas the Tank Engine holds up a little bit more because they're, physical models. You know me, I love the physical models. But
Yeah.
also, let's look at this show's contemporaries at the time, right? Well,
Sure,
If,
yeah.
if you go back and look at something like Reboot, the first 3D animated show to ever be on television,
Yep.
Canadian,
Love it.
Rainmaker
Love it.
Studios, or another Rainmaker Studios production, Beast Wars.
Beast Wars, yeah.
Both of those shows obviously are products of their time. Very early CGI.
Those early episodes are terrible. Terrible looking. I love the shows. I love them.
But I do even think that there's a certain charm to the way Reboot and Beast Wars looks.
Yeah,
And
okay.
it's not
Yeah.
nostalgia based. Like, I've gone back and watched, those shows recently. And though you'd be hard pressed to put out a show that looked like that today, unless you were doing something kind of ironic like Xavier Renegade Angel or something like that, there's sort of a charm to those shows. I think that this show, even though they were constrained by both the times and the technology of the times,
Yes.
I think the faces look weird. I hate how everybody looks.
Sure.
And I think when the live action people are talking to the CGI planes, it looks crazy.
Elaborate. What do you mean?
I just think it looks absolutely positively insane. Like everybody, so the live action people all look like they're like characters in like an FMV light gun game. Like it's like I'm playing Area 51.
I had the same. Okay, yes, I had the same point, and this is like the first thing that I wrote down when we talked about the episode is that it looks like we talked about the three elements: the background sets, the live action actors in front of the green screen, the CGI models. It looks like a CD-ROM game, and specifically, you were talking about an FMV game. It's just like absolutely that is what I am thinking of.
Yeah.
Your Phantasmagorias, your Night Traps, your
Yes.
you're just weird 90s CD-ROM adventure games that try to blend all these together, and it just looks étrange. It looks strange.
Mad Dog McCree, if you
Yes,
will. But
yes.
the other thing that looks weird about it to me is that I like really, really hate the way all the faces look, because it's not the same way, like, for instance, like Thomas the Tank Engine, their faces, but they're still really like stylized in a way where everybody in Thomas the Tank Engine has these like flat, white, some of them have like really angular noses. The way these faces are made are for the kind of face tracking technology, but a lot of the it's hard to describe, but a lot of the ways their faces are kind of jutting out of the front, it's not okay. In Cars, they make it so like the cars' faces are like like their eyes are windows. And
Yeah, there's no skin going on. It's just
Yeah.
kind of the features of the human face, but mapped onto a car.
Yeah, whereas these guys, it's like they like Buffalo Bill style, cut off someone's face and strapped it to the front of an airplane, and then everybody with propellers is like a weird mustachioed looking weirdo. Like the noses all look kind of strange. JJ himself kind of looks like a prick, like he's like a big smiling asshole.
They look like metal morphs if Animorphs was about changing into vehicles.
Okay, great comparison. And I think that's the main nugget is that, like, if you're gonna make a kid show, something that will go a long way is having your protagonist have like a really solid design.
Yeah.
The examples are countless, right? Like Mickey Mouse, Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog is a series where it's had ups and downs, but I think one of the things that keeps that series going is that the Sonic design is like brilliant. Like you look
Right.
at him and he conveys speed. JJ the jet plane, all you got to do is take one look at this guy and you're like, I hate this. Like I hate he
nothing-
is amongst the worst of them all, and he's the main character.
The face is the first thing that you see on JJ. Yeah, it doesn't help. Like when I was watching this, the faces look like the kind of faces that you would get from like a guy who does caricatures on the boardwalk.
Yes.
And they just kind of and the way that they're the way that they kind of cut off at the start of where the neck would be on the face, it kind of just looks like the plane is beginning a horrible transformation into a large human, or in JJ's case, a baby. JJ just kind of looks like a baby.
Everybody's got these really weird pencil thin eyebrows.
Yeah. So it's unavoidable. This show looks very weird and not in the greatest of ways. But again, I do want to say, like, I think for what they were trying to go for, it's just in that middle period where we were still figuring out CGI. We were still figuring out probably how much it costs and what it can like what we should do and what we shouldn't do in terms of portraying human features on things. And it's just like, this was just kind of a casualty of that. So I'm sure they tried hard. And at least like this way, if you're trying to do lip flaps with this sort of thing, they don't look terrible. But
even then, the lip flaps don't match up, because if in some shots, like the way the lip flaps are going, the show almost looks like it was translated from another language. Like everybody looks like a character in Final Fantasy X, where they stop talking but their lips keep moving.
Yeah,
indeed.
So that is what the show looks like. What does it sound like? Let's talk about a couple of people who are on the cast of JJ the Jet Plane, and some of these people have some really interesting credits. So first of all, the voice of JJ Savannah, who is the jetliner, the lady jetliner, Herky the helicopter, and not appearing in this episode, Revan Evan, is Debbie Derryberry, who is a very accomplished voice actor. You may know her as the voice of Jimmy Neutron. Like all across Jimmy Neutron media, she is the voice of Jimmy. By the way, check out Nitro Rad's latest video. YouTuber Nitro Rad, who did the ECL logo, just did a video on Jimmy Neutron video games.
Friend of the show, Nitro Rad.
Friend of the show, Nitro Rad.
And that voice is so iconic, I totally recognized it immediately, too. I was like, oh, this is Jimmy Neutron. Got a blast.
I will also say, for you anime fans, she did the voice of Ryo Oki in Tenchi Muyo and the character Zatch from Zatch Bell, if that's something you've watched.
Yes, that show and manga are way better than you think. That's like one of those shows where it would be on YTV back in the day in like the block, and you'd be like, oh, Zatch Bell, I want Pokemon or
right.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Or whatever. But that show holds up really, really well, and the manga's really good. Zatch Bell rules.
I will say, for these voice actors that we're talking about here, I really encourage you to, again, go to their Wikipedia or IMDb page. I guarantee you have heard them in at least one thing. I just I go general with these, like where you would know them from, but I guarantee that there's something that I didn't include that you'd know them instantly from, such as Sandy Fox, who plays Tracy, who's the kind of girl JJ, Snuffy, the guy with the one with the weird nose, and Tuffy. I'm not sure which one Tuffy is. She is, again, veteran voice actor. The thing I recognized her from is that she does the voice of Chibiusa in the Viz Media dub of Sailor Moon, so the more recent dub of Sailor Moon. I also want to mention that the original voice of JJ back in I believe it was in the early show and then the pilot shows, I believe, was veteran voice actor and legend Mary Kay Bergman, who unfortunately died in 1999, but she has over 400 credits. You may know her as doing basically all the women of South Park in the early South Park episodes. So I just wanted to say rest in peace, Mary Kay Bergman, one of the most recognizable names in 80s and 90s voiceover projects. We had Michael Donovan playing the roles of Big Jake, Old Oscar, and the narrator of the show. You may recognize him. He is the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi in anything Lego Star Wars these days. He was Master Roshi in the Canadian dub of Dragon Ball.
The best dub of Dragon Ball.
And he is 4 different voices in Reboot, including Fong, Mike the TV, Cecil, and Al. So, like, all of the important secondary characters in the show is Michael Donovan. And I also wanted to mention Eve Whittle, who plays one of the live action characters, Brenda Blue. Now, she doesn't have any other credits really besides JJ the Jet Plane, but she is a program director for a children's theater program in LA and a child psychologist. And one of the things that was pointed out in the research is that when she speaks to the planes, she always makes a point of like enunciating everything she says. So like the way that she speaks is very much informed by her background working with kids. So good to have somebody in that kind of role who is an expert at making themselves able to be understood by kids.
And I'll also say that, from the episodes we watched today, probably the only character I liked because she didn't look like a freaky plane person. I was like, okay, at least I understand this lady's whole deal because it's like a regular lady.
And before we get into the episodes that we talked about, of course, it's time to talk about the theme song to JJ the Jet Plane. And so the theme song and the majority of songs in the show, because there's one song per episode, which is huge because this had like 60-something episodes, were composed by a guy named Stephen Michael Schwartz and sung by his group Parachute Express. Now, Parachute Express, this is the first I've ever heard of them, but they're apparently a rather popular children's band. Or not band of children, but band that made children's music that was active in the 90s and 2000s. They composed music for Walt Disney Records, and they also composed music for the Gymboree franchise. Do you know what I mean when I say Gymboree?
No, I'm not familiar. What is this Gymboree?
So Gymboree is like is a chain of clothing stores that does children's clothing.
Oh, like okay, I'm trying to remember a children's clothing store, but it's escaping me. Will, you'd be surprised. I'm a pretty small guy, but I actually do not shop at children's clothing stores that often.
There was one local to us, Wee something, WEE something. Anyway, Gymboree, the clothing store, they did music that played through, I'm to understand, over 500 franchises across North America.
Wow.
So yeah, it's got to be good for something. And they disbanded in 2011. So the JJ the Jet Plane theme song, I will say, mercifully short.
Yeah, I would say that I'm gonna go out on a limb here, Will. We've been hemming and pawing. I'm gonna make a big kind of statement here. I'm gonna go out on a limb. I think this is the worst theme song we have heard yet on For the Kids. We're always talking about, this might be the best theme song yet. This might be my favorite one yet. I think this is without a doubt the worst theme song we have heard thus far. This one's a stinker. I don't know what, like, it's weirdly like slow. Like, I remember this theme song being faster, but it's like, it's weirdly slow. It's like weirdly not catchy and like discordant. And then like you get those, you were doing it off the top, just the terrible JJ going, that's me over and over.
So this is number one of the two things I remembered about the show that immediately set me against it. I hate this. Like, it's so
bad.
It's so for, like, I know we've talked about a lot of children's theme songs, and I agree with you. This is probably the worst one. It's amazing how in all of the shows that we've watched, or at least almost all of them, they managed to make a theme song that avoids being like treacly. Like, this is how I would, like, it's almost diabetically, like, sweet. It's just like, the sun is coming up over Terrytown. And it's like, it's, even as a child, I would feel talked down to with this. It's just like, ugh. It's just, there's too much sugar in it. And it was certainly more awake than I was at 9:30 this morning. And then, of course, he has JJ, the jet plane. That's me. And I'm like, shut up. God,
and also,
just shut
it
up.
would be fine if he said it once. Because that's like, that's me, like, everywhere from like Bubsy the cat to sort of every mascot character we've had. They're always going, that's me, when like their name is said in the theme song.
Everyone knows it's Butters. Well, that's me.
Exactly. But JJ the Jet Plane says it how many times?
I think he says it 2 or 3, but that's 1 or 2 too many.
Exactly. And also, to make matters worse, we got to look at his freaking face the whole time. He's like big, smiling, his weird dimples. I figured out something else about it. Remember when you were saying it kind of looks like a baby? His skin is too, like, it's too all one texture. Like, he needs some imperfections. His weird, like, thumb face. It's too smooth. And his giant dimples. His dimples are so big, like, they're going over his eyes. Like, he would be able to see his dimples in the bottom of his eyes. That's how much they're, like, cresting over them. Ugh.
And especially in, like, stills of the show. Like, when you... like Google search JJ the Jet Plane, safe search on, of course, and you get all like the official promotional images. He just looks smug, and you like But in the end, I didn't end up hating him as a character. He just makes a really terrible first impression by the way he looks. Which I know I'm again judging people by their looks, but judging planes by their looks. Excuse me, but Anyway, bad. Didn't like it. So. I asked on Discord if anybody had any episode recommendations. Nobody did. So I went with the one that had the most views on YouTube, and then it's kind of partner episode because each one has like 2 stories, like an Arthur or some such.
Very democratic of you, Will. Let the children decide what the best episode of JJ the Jet Plane is.
So I went with season 3, episode 43A, JJ Meets Captain Hightower, which has like over 100,000 views on YouTube. So the idea behind this story is that the Tarrytown airport, where they all live in Tarrytown, as the theme song will tell you, is very busy. So the planes have to take turns in order to get to where they want to go. They're getting a lot of orders for plane pickups and plane deliveries and all this kind of stuff, and they're getting in each other's way. So then they decide to what's her name? Blue, the human character.
The human character. Oh,
sorry,
man.
it is Brenda. Sorry,
yes.
I knew it was a B. So Brenda asks them to take turns when they, take off and make sure that everybody is kind of in a line and not getting in anybody's way. So I had the thing here of like the look of the show reminds me of a CD-ROM game. So I ended up getting used to almost all of the planes and how they looked. Like there was the initial shock of water to the face of just like, oh, the way this looks. But then you get used to them pretty quickly, especially the ones that look cartoony to begin with. The one I couldn't get used to was the commercial airliner with the lady's face. Her name is Savannah, and it looks so horrifying. It's everything that we talked about before. It's just a woman's face stretching over the nose of like a commercial airliner, and it's so strange looking and upsetting.
Like I said, it reminds me of stuff like Xavier Renegade Angel or like Y2K art, where people are like intentionally trying to make kind of early 3D looking stuff that looks bizarre. That's what this reminds me of.
Or something that you would find on the wrong part of deviant art. Now, not going to do any kink shaming here. It just reminds me of, oops, I saw somebody's fan art of a woman's face stretched over a plane that they're really into, and I'm glad she wasn't a big part of the episodes we watched. That's the only one that I had trouble getting used to.
I have some questions about this Tarrytown. So
okay.
When we first see Tarrytown, it's like over a giant empty field. Like this is definitely a kind of remote location or like a rural location. Like it looks like the way Vegas looks when you look at it from the sky, where it's like
sure.
just miles and miles of green texture around quite a small town. It leads me to believe there's either like 2 kind of scenarios for this, because it's like, why does this small town have such an active airport? It's either something like this location is so remote, it's like Nunavut or something, where all supplies have to be flown in. Hence why this airport is like so active.
Right.
Or it's like a Las Vegas kind of situation where Tarrytown is like hiding something, and so they have to put it in the middle of this remote location. Either way, it's weird that they have such an active airport. It's also weird that this airport still uses a biplane.
That's right. I remember thinking of like, of all of the planes, and the idea is that each plane is like a different type. You've got like commercial aircraft, you've got, jumbo jets, you've got helicopters, and
by the way,
and the old one is a biplane.
What was the helicopter's accent?
Okay, so you jumped ahead of me. No, this is the main reason why I hate JJ the Jet Plane, and I say hate because this is not the entire show. And thankfully, he barely talks in this first episode. In the second episode, the reason why I have such unpleasant memories of this show is Herky. I fucking hate Herky so much. Because you're right, Lucas. What accent does he have? Because he just talks like a fool, because he sounds like he's stuffed up all the time, except then they add in that he rolls his R's. And I'm just like, what are we trying to do here? So he'll just be like, yeah, like he doesn't even sound German. That's the thing. I was like, oh, like probably, like remembering in my head, what I hated was that Herky rolled his R's on every single R that he has, like an accent that nobody has. So I'm like, well, he must have been like German or something. And it's just like, no, he just sounds like, we're going to go on this scavenger hunt. And I'm just like, I hate every time this guy speaks. It's the worst thing. oh my God, I can't express how much that this hits all of the wrong buttons in my brain, Herky. And on top of that, he looks just fucking ugly. Like
he does look really horrible. And also, ding, cinema sin, the helicopter would not be taking off from the airplane strip. Thank you very much. It would be taking off from a helicopter pad. So take that, JJ the jet plane.
I will also add a cinema sin in that how is anybody able to hear themselves talk when there should be constant noise with everybody's propeller going? If the planes are able to move, their engines are going. Like there are points where I'm just like, yeah, Brenda talking to these 5 planes in a circle would just be deaf by now because of the noise that it takes planes to just even operate.
Well, speaking of death, the other definition of death. We open with this so Brenda's trying to like shepherd these planes around. Apparently it's a particularly busy season, and this is like this is how you get into like a Captain Sully Sullenberger kind of situation, because these planes are almost hitting each other non-stop. I wrote down this is very poor air traffic management, and this is a disaster waiting to happen. In fact, they give us a little taste, because not only are the planes kind of confused on the ground and like almost hitting each other on the runway on the ground, there's at one point where JJ almost flies into yet another ugly plane, the senior citizen guy with like kind of the old rough and gruff kind of face. They almost have a mid-air collision. So yeah, this is dangerous. This is I can't even believe that these guys, this is a licensed kind of operation going on here.
Very much so. But that does end up being part of the episode. Before that part, they do have a song. The song of this episode is called Taking Turns, and it's all about making sure that everybody has their turn to be first and everybody has to have their turn to be last. Actually more in this song, there was a lyric in here that I found strangely like affecting in a way, because they were trying to illustrate the fact that like sometimes like if somebody's first and you're last, that doesn't mean that you're going to be last every time. In fact, next time it'll be your turn to be first. And the lyric was, life goes round and then returns. And I'm like, damn, JJ, it really do be like that sometimes. So
time is a flat circle, JJ.
One thing I wrote here is that I'm genuinely curious how the kids who grew up on JJ think of the CGI now, because I think maybe we already kind of talked about this, because I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of the way that old Thomas the Tank Engine looks. But then you have, the big discourse a couple of weeks ago was the fact that Thomas the Tank Engine is getting a new entirely cartoon show. And so now they can do all the things that they couldn't do with the models. They can express themselves. And Thomas had the CGI stuff before. It's like they can express themselves, they can kind of move in ways that the old models couldn't. And I imagine that the old Thomas shows, by virtue of these ones existing, must look pretty primitive. So I wonder if JJ looks as primitive to kids who grew up on it as maybe old Thomas does to new kids right now. Would a young child watching JJ the Jet Plane that aired in 1998 today, would they be like, oh, this looks old and bad?
Would they notice? I don't know. There's all those weird, algorithmically generated cartoons on YouTube from India, No Daddy, all that stuff. And all that stuff looks weird and busted too.
Finger Family, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like kids just don't have the ability to discern what is really terrible animation. Perhaps, maybe we're giving JJ the Jet Plane too big of too much slack, and it actually looked terrible on first release, and we just didn't realize because we were kids. I'd have to ask my parents what they think of JJ the Jet Plane. But yeah, I think that kids probably don't have the ability to figure this out. Otherwise, things like No Daddy or Yes Papa or whatever wouldn't be so popular. Yeah.
So after that near collision, Brenda sends JJ to go pick up Captain Hightower, who will help them with these kind of traffic congestion problems. So JJ goes to his orchard that he owns, basically.
This is really funny because it's like an 80s movie, we're bringing you out of retirement. Going to Rambo's remote cottage, being we got one last job for you.
Captain Hightower First Blood Part 2 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I liked about this is that, Captain Hightower is like asleep outside and JJ kind of rolls up next to him and like kind of sneaks up on him. And I was just thinking of like, imagine if you're Captain Hightower and a plane with a face just sneaks up on you and is like, hi, I'm here to take you to the airport. It's like, oh, Jesus. So I don't know, just kind of funny in my head. So Captain Hightower, I kind of like this guy. I think he's probably, I liked him a bit better than Brenda. Just he's a very, he's again a very good children's performer, and the message behind JJ talking to him is that he encourages JJ to take his time when doing a job, and it's better to do a job smarter instead of doing it faster.
Captain Hightower, the third character in the show to have a handlebar mustache.
A lot of mustaches, you're right.
Yeah, everybody's a mustache twirling weirdo in this show.
And Captain Hightower's philosophy reminded me of the classic Simpsons quote, well, I can do it faster or I can do it right, which is a philosophy I usually live by too. That's why we don't have ECL episodes come out on the Patreon first, usually. So Captain Hightower has that whole thing. He's got like this apple orchard and he takes it back with him. And so JJ takes him to the Tarrytown airport, and we get this long explanation about why Captain Hightower is going to the observation tower. And so to direct everybody so that nobody gets in each other's way. And we get a little, and that's pretty much the episode there. The ending part is where Captain Hightower is just kind of riffing in front of the camera. He has this whole routine where he likes to juggle apples, and his final juggling routine is like he manages to eat apples while he's juggling them. It was actually pretty cool.
It was pretty impressive. Now, I gotta ask, during this whole sequence where Captain Hightower is kind of explaining how to be an air traffic conductor, is this better or worse, Will, than the John Cusack, Billy Bob Thornton film Pushing Tin, the romantic comedy from the early 2000s? What do you think?
I don't know. I've never seen Pushing Tin.
It's really bad. It's not good.
Patrons weren't alive when Pushing Tin came out in 1996. I'll have you know.
I'll tell you my input. They're both equally
please.
bad. Pushing Tin is not a good movie. Not good.
Well, okay. So, explain. Okay, explain what Pushing Tin is, because I'm not even sure I know.
Oh, John Cusack is like the best air traffic controller in the biz, and I think that Billy Bob Thornton shows up on the street, and the oh my god, I can't even talk. He shows up on the scene, and like I think they're both competing for the same girl, and also to be the best air traffic controller. That song, "You Get What You Give."
By the New Radicals.
By the New Radicals, who just came out of retirement for Joe Biden's inauguration.
That's right. Yeah.
That was like the official theme song of that movie. It's in the trailer.
Okay.
And that's about everything I know I can remember off the top of my head about the John Cusack film Pushing Tin. Not good. Not a good movie.
All right, you're just gonna put yourself on the spot with that one. Okay, so from Pushing Tin, we go to season 3, episode 43B, Tracy's Snuggly Blanket. And this is about, Tracy, Tracy is the female JJ. She's got the exact same design, except she's like pink and her face is a little darker and she's a girl.
So yeah, answer me this. Did they literally take the JJ face and then just darken the skin tone? Because I think her face is identical.
I wouldn't be surprised. She's got longer eyelashes too, because girl. She might as well be like JJ's Ms. Pac-Man at this point. So the whole thing is that she has this snuggly blanket that is, I forgot that like in real life they cover planes in blankets sometimes. So it's not so strange that they would have a large blanket to fit Tracy. So, she loves this blanket so much. She even has a song about it called My Snuggly Wuggly One, which, it's surprisingly not as sugary and treacly as the opening to JJ the Jet Plane. In fact, I had the note here that Tracy Fox, who is, did I say Tracy? Oh my goodness, her name's not Tracy Fox. I'm sorry. Tracy is the name of the character. The voice actor's name is Sandy Fox. I'm sorry. So Sandy Fox, her singing voice manages to thread the needle of being the singing voice of a character who's ostensibly a little girl that isn't complete ear cancer. Like like it manages to not be grating in any way. In fact, I thought that her singing was actually pretty in this character singing voice was good. So
this sequence
it didn't make me want to die.
This sequence is really funny and strange to me because we get this kind of like dream sequence of her like flying around with the blanket like it's a magic carpet. And you could tell this is just one of those early 3D animation things where they're like, oh, we could do this, so let's do it.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, let's make the carpet move around all crazy with this 3D animation software. But then they do this thing where they cut back to what's happening in reality. And it's like the plane moving very, very slowly over the blanket, like ever so subtly.
Like just rolling its wheel along it.
Yeah, and it's just weird.
It's hard to explain if you haven't seen it, and I apologize if you do have to see it.
And she's like not moving backwards or forwards. It's like, it really looks like someone is taking a mouse, like clicking and dragging the plane like over the blanket.
Just the assets, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I took 2 different notes over the course of the episode, and I will essentially sum up the plot like so. The planes are taking part in the scavenger hunt, and Tracy doesn't want them to know that she still has her blanket because she doesn't want to be called a baby.
Right. Will, she had it since she was a baby plane, which set off alarm bells in my head in regards to the JJ the Jet Plane lore and what we know about this universe. Like, I was like, lore alert. They raised the planes from children. What's going on here? Are they organic? They were built in a factory? What's happening? There's a baby plane. What does that mean? I had to like shut it off for a second and go for a walk because I think my brain was like filling in with too many JJ the Jet Plane hypotheticals at the revelation that the plane's age.
It's literally not worth thinking about. Like, let's just go with that. So they're doing this scavenger hunt, and then Tracy's blanket goes missing. So in many ways, this episode is combining the Arthur episode of the Love Ducks, because except replace the Love Ducks with Tracy's blanket. She doesn't want people to know that she still has it, or else she'll be called a baby. And then the way this episode pans out is that it's wildly similar to the episode about DW's blanket, where they look for it all over, they can't find it, and then it turns out that they just washed it. And that's literally what happens. Tracy's blanket goes missing. It turns out that they actually Brenda washed the blanket, and then at the end it's revealed that like, oh, we all have our own like little comfort items. Like one of the planes is like, yeah, I still drink with my bottle sometimes, or like I put kids songs on my radio, and Brenda still has her like little doll that she used to sleep with when she was a kid. So it's like nobody was going to make fun of her, which is just like, oh, this is just DW's blanket. And the DW's blanket episode, they're looking for it all over. There's a nod to the fact that Arthur has Stanley and DW has the blanket, and then eventually they find it because the blanket was in the wash.
The helicopter's like, I still breastfeed. I haven't been weaned.
No, that was the one with the weird nose. That was Snuffy. Herky was talking about the radio basically because of course you give that stupid character the word with the R in it. So he's like, I listen to the radio and I do it routinely and I.
If these children's shows have taught me, a childless 26-year-old, anything, it's that if I ever have a kid and they have a special blankie, to carefully explain to them that the blankie will be washed before I wash it, so that they don't have a conniption wondering where it is.
I think that you will try to do that, but for some, I think especially for young kids, it's hard to understand that when you take them away to be washed, they will get them back. Like
I'm giving them a press release. If these shows have taught me anything, I'm gonna beat this idea. Well, not physically beat this idea into their heads, but
no.
I am going to, as clearly, I'm going to be enunciating like Brenda, being like, your blankie will be back. It is filthy.
I think I, as a childless 30-year-old, at least know that no matter how much thought and logic you put into communicating with a child, sometimes it just won't work, and it won't make sense why it won't work. So, Lucas, I wish you the best, and I really hope that your youngster knows the difference between it's in the laundry and it's gone forever.
Oh, okay, I got it. I have the solution. I've theory crafted this raising a child problem.
Go for it.
Buying 2 of the same blankie, but not telling them, and then rotating one out. Nothing like a little deception to keep the kids in line.
Get them started early on the deception. Okay, that's that could work. Actually, that's not that bad. I mean, yeah, we just basically covered the episode there. There's nothing else that I really want to talk about from it, unless there's anything you want to go over specifically from Tracy's Snuggly Blanket.
No, I'm just like looking through stills now. You were saying that the helicopter looks like a freak, and that the female plane is like
sounds like a freak.
Sounds like a freak. The female plane's the grossest looking one. What's his name with the propeller on his nose, but not the one with the twirly mustache? The other guy with the propeller on his nose.
I think his name is Snuffy. It's like he has like a weird like cartoon like animal snout.
Yeah, he doesn't make any sense because everybody else just looks like a regular person, but he like has a snout like he's a dog, but he's not a dog. He's a human being. So it's as if he's like the guy from American Werewolf in London mid-transformation, where it's like he's got like this jutting snout, and it doesn't make any sense. It's very confusing.
He's two different kinds of middle morphs or something. So are you proud of what we've done here today? Are you proud of yourself for having us go through this?
I am.
How are you feeling?
I am, Will. I am proud. I'm glad we got to talk about JJ the Jet Plane. Lots of good conversation. And I got to say, at the end of the episode, we usually say, did this show hold up? Would you recommend this to kids now? And, all the episodes are on YouTube. So I think this is 100,000 views. I think it's very applicable. I'm going to say no. I hate JJ the Jet Plane. I think this was really boring. Really just like not fun to watch. And I bet, I just don't think this would be, if you're showing the kid and you have to watch this over their shoulder, I think it would be really taxing on my mental health. So I'm going to say 2 thumbs down to old JJ the Jet Plane. There's lots of shows that are just like this. Put on, Disney Pictures Planes instead. That's not even like a full Cars or Pixar movie. It's like a spit-off straight-to-DVD movie. I'm sure that's far more watchable than this. What about you, Will? Thoughts on JJ the Jet Plane?
So here's a bit of the left hook. After all of the complaining and kvetching I just did, I'm not going to wholeheartedly recommend this. In fact, I'm not even really going to recommend it. As Lucas said, I think that there are better shows that did what JJ did. Not necessarily in CGI, but, it's a very simple show, and you can get this kind of content from basically any of them. And unless your kid is obsessed with the way it looks or obsessed with planes or something, I can't think of a real reason to recommend it. But I will say, I don't think it was terrible. Like, there were the obvious reasons why it looks strange and at times upsetting to our eyes. And there are things about it that really stick out and bother us as adults. But I got to say, I was coming in expecting like one of the worst things that we've ever covered. And I don't know. I think that you could do a lot worse. I think that, the animation being what it is, you're either going to hate it or you're not. If you don't, bless you. The songs, I think, were pretty well done. I got to give points to a show that tells kids to work smart and not hard.
True.
I feel like, especially around that time, it was always work hard and not work smart. So like that's just me personally. I think that's a really good lesson to teach kids. It's a little bit, it might be circumventing the system a little bit, but then again, a lot of the systems we have are bad.
Yes.
So
JJ the Jet Plane explaining to tell your boss that it's going to take you 2 days to do this thing with a Excel spreadsheet, when in reality it takes 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to make sure to give credit where it's due. I think that there's a lot of different voices. Like the cast list is actually pretty thin, so a lot of the voice actors had to do dozens and dozens of episodes doing like 3 to 5 different voices, and I really have to mainly like 3 to 4 different voices, which is hard. So I think that they did a pretty good job keeping them all distinct, even though I absolutely hate one of the voices. Like, it's fine. Like I think that they really did the best they could with this concept, and it is again clear that this came from somewhere. It wasn't just something that somebody just crapped out and was like, yeah, sure, do it, whatever. Like, there was intent behind this. And
it's not quite, it's not yes, papa. No.
And even though it didn't quite land in the way that a lot of the other shows did, even though, I definitely won't be watching any of this again. And, I would maybe, gently encourage my children towards Thomas or Theodore before I,
yes,
have them do JJ. it really isn't the worst thing I've ever seen. And, we've gotten all the histrionics out about it, but I really don't hold very much ill will towards it. I just, won't be watching it again, but I wanted to be polite and I wanted to give credit where it was due, because that's what this is about. We don't just come in here to, to crap on old shows. And normally we don't. Normally there is not enough bad things to talk about, but we will come up against these PBS Kids shows that are closer to bad than good. And thankfully, I don't know if we found one yet that was like obviously horrible. And JJ isn't one of them. It's not horrible. It's just, you can do better. Here's what I'll say.
Here's my recommendation to all the dear listeners. I know that we have here at ECL, I've seen the analytics, I've seen the data. Most of our listeners are in the continental United States, whereas we are but two lowly Haligonians here in Nova Scotia, east coast of Canada. If your child says, Mommy, Daddy, this is how kids talk, I would like to watch a show with anthropomorphic vehicles, instead of JJ the jet plane, put on an episode of Theodore the Tugboat, because nothing would make me happier than having a bunch of American kids, for some reason, knowing about all these places in Halifax Harbor and Nova Scotia. That I think would be a happy ending to the JJ the jet plane saga, is if we can share Theodore with a few more Americans. But yeah, that's my humble plea, is if the kid says, I want to watch a show where those vehicles done got faces, throw on a Theodore and see how they take to it.
Agreed. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this episode of For the Kids, a PBS Kids podcast. Hello to all of our new patrons as well. Especially want to say hello to Emmy the Ghost, who just joined on the day that we are recording this. Welcome to the Elwood City Limits Patreon. Hopefully you are not scared off by this content that we're doing today. In fact, it's time for you to have your say, ECL patron. The next For the Kids episode poll is coming your way noontime on Sunday, this coming Sunday. So we have 4 options to choose from in this poll, and that will determine what is the next episode of For the Kids we will be covering. And there's a few on here that I know that we've got some fans of in the Discord and on the Patreon. So here are your options.
Ooh, I don't know these. I don't know these, by the way. This is a cold read for me.
So it's going to be between Molly of Denali, Xavier Riddle and the Secret Museum, or Xavier Riddle and the Secret Museum, Odd Squad, and the Big Comfy Couch. So what is it going to be, players? You have your choice between one of 4, and that poll is going to be up for an entire week from Sunday to Sunday, and you will have to put your vote in there if you want us to check out one of these PBS Kids shows. And of course, if we have it in a poll, that doesn't mean that if it doesn't win, you'll never see it again. Most likely we will get to it further down the road. But what do you want to see next? Do you want to see Molly of Denali, which is from the creator of Word Girl? Xavier Riddle, I'm to understand, is very popular. The Big Comfy Couch, Lucas and I, that is our Canadian television history. And Odd Squad, I understand, has quite a following as well. So please vote until Sunday, February the 21st, and our episode will be out on Friday the 26th. So thank you for joining us, Lucas. I'm leaving on a JJ the jet plane.
Finally. I don't know when I'll be back again. Actually, I do know, Will. It's going to be next week.
Next week for Elwood City Limits, and then 2 weeks later to find out what is going to be the winner of our 4th For the Kids episode poll. For Lucas Mancini, my name's Will Young, and